Welcome back, GED scholars and math warriors, to Algebra 104, Part 4, the case of the curved clues. And if you're thinking, I have no idea what we're talking about when we talk about curved clues, well, folks, this lesson is all about the quadratic equation. And for those of you who might remember that term from the days of high school, you remember that the equation looks a lot like what you see on the screen, where we have x squared plus 3x minus 4 equals 0. And so the basic setup of this equation looks like it may be difficult to find the answer. I'm going to show you how we can unpack the quadratic equation. And hint, hint, folks, you've already done this if you've been watching the algebra videos, because we're going to use the FOIL method. And I know that sounds familiar to you, so keep watching and you'll see where it comes up again. But then after unpacking that equation, we're going to be able to find two different values for x. Just a quick reminder, folks, that although this might be something that you find difficult at times, you just need to make sure that you study and understand how to get through a couple of problems, because when it comes to the actual GED exam, it's not like all 46 questions are going to be with the quadratic equation. You definitely want to expect at least one. And remember, we want to do the best that we possibly can on these exams. And don't forget, if you haven't already checked out GEDtalk.com resources page, please make sure you do, where we share a whole bunch of different math worksheets, a whole bunch of different guides for you on any of the exams to help you do the best that you possibly can. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want us to cover, again, because I know you're going to be like, wait, didn't I see this in another video? You probably did if you're watching the algebra series videos. But for those of you who haven't, we're going to talk about the FOIL method really quickly, because it's best to have a good understanding of these different techniques. On the GED exam, they might give you these two equations that are within the parentheses. So we have a total of 4 terms, and they might ask you to multiply them. And so the FOIL method is a way to help you remember the different terms that need to be multiplied in order to get the answer. F stands for first. So that means they want you to multiply the first term in each one of the parentheses. So we would do 2x times, I'm just going to put it in parentheses because if I don't, we have a lot of x's going on over there, but it's going to be 2x times x. And we're not going to solve yet. I want to make sure we do the FOIL and then we'll go through and solve. So the next one is the outer. So that would be the 2x, and the outer of the second one would be the -4. And then we have I, which is the inner. So that would be the 3 times the x. And then last is the 2 last terms in each parentheses. So then we would have 3 times -4. So now we're going to go back up and I'm going to solve for each one of these. So 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times -4 is -8x. 3 times x is 3x. And 3 times -4 is -12. Before I rewrite all of the solutions that we just found, I noticed that I can, what is that? Combine like terms. So -8 plus 3x would give us -5x. So now I'm going to rewrite everything that I see on the right side. So I have 2x squared minus 5x minus 12. For this lesson, we're going to continue on with quadratic equations and how to find the solutions to that equation. So you might get, for example, x squared minus 3x equals 4. And all they'll say is solve. I'm going to tell you something, folks, that I probably should have said in the intro. I'm 40 years old. I've never been asked to solve a quadratic equation. But if you're studying for the exam, make sure you understand how to complete this process, because the likelihood that you will get at least one question asking you about solving a quadratic equation is actually high. Let's go ahead and solve for this. So what I need to do is I need to make this equation equal to 0. And in order to do that, I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, because on the right side of that equal sign, I will get 0. And then on the left, I get 2x minus 3x minus 4. Well, as we saw in the FOIL method, you are going to be given at times equations where they want you to multiply the terms together, and that's why we use the FOIL. But then when you have the quadratic equation, you're basically kind of doing the opposite of it. I like to tell my students that you're unpacking the equation now. And when we unpack, we know that we are going to have 2 sets of parentheses. So I went ahead and drew those. My first term is x squared. Well, how did I get an x squared? I just multiplied x times x, and that's all it takes, folks. The next part is sometimes tricky, but if you understand your multiplication tables and you know how to add, you'll be completely fine. The reason I say that is now you need to find the last terms for each set of parentheses. And in order to find that, those two numbers, what you need to do is you need to look at the last digit that's at the end. That's the -4 we brought over. And I have to think to myself, what two numbers, when they multiply, equal -4, but when they're added together will give me -3, this number to the left of it. So on this side over here, I'm going to kind of draw a wall, and I need to ask myself what two numbers, when multiplied, will equal -4, and then when added together will equal -3. So let's start -4. Well, I know if I have 1 times 4, I can get 4. Well, how can I get -3? Well, if I had -4 plus 1, that would give me -3. And you're like, whoa, wait, when you were multiplying, you just did 1 times 4. I understand that, folks. And the reason why I'm not even worrying about the negative sign when I was looking for these two numbers is because of just that. I wanted to think to myself, what two numbers multiplied together equal this 4? I don't care about the fact that it's negative right now. What two just equal 4? I'll figure out the negative and positive signs afterwards. Well, sure enough, I know that 1 times 4 equals 4. And now when I say, okay, well, now these two numbers have to equal -3 when I add them together, I know if I'm using these two digits, the negative has to be connected to the 4 to get a -3, because -4 plus 1 equals -3. So now that I have these numbers, these digits, and I know which one is negative and which one is positive, I'm going to bring them down, and I'm going to do +1 and then -4 over here. But that's not the end of it. If you're like, yeah, we figured it out, the two numbers are -4 and then the +1, we've got it, we're done. That's the answer. No, folks, because they're asking you, what is the solution? What are the two answers that x can equal? You're going to figure out that answer by doing x plus 1 equals 0 and then x minus 4 equals 0. Solve these problems if you've been watching the algebra series videos. So we have x equals -1, add 4 both sides, cancels itself out. And then I have x equals 4. So the two solutions for this problem of x squared minus 3x equals 4 is -1, and the second answer is 4. These are considered the solutions to the quadratic equation. So let's look at another example. X squared minus x equals 20. So when they give you a problem like this and they ask for you to solve it or ask you to find the two solutions for this problem, we know we need to get that 20 over to the left side of the equal sign, and we have to make this equal to 0. So let's go ahead and get 20 over to the other side. So it'll cancel out on that side. Now I have x squared minus x minus 20. And now we need to solve for x. So what do we need to do first? We're going to unpack this left side. So go ahead and draw your parentheses. The first is easy because all you have is x squared, so I know it's an x and an x to begin both of the parenthesis expressions. Then I have minus x minus 20. And what's the rule, folks? You need to find the two digits that when multiplied will give you this last digit, and for us it's -20, and then when you add those two digits will give you whatever you see in the middle, and for us that's -1. What are two digits that when multiplied would give me -20? Well, I know that 1 times 20 will give me 20. And if I subtract 1 from 20 or 20 from 1, would that give me -1? No, it wouldn't. So 1 times 20 is not going to be our possible solution. So let's go to another set of numbers. So next one I could do is 2 times 10. Okay, 2 times 10 will give me 20, but 2 plus 10, or even if it was 2 plus -10, is not going to give me -1. So I'm not going to pay attention to that one. Okay, what's another set of two numbers that when multiplied would equal 20? So my next bet is 4 times 5. Okay, this looks good. 4 times 5 equals 20, and if they're added together, can give me -1. Okay, well, if the 5 was negative and I had 4 plus -5, which is really 4 minus 5, then heck yeah, I get a -1. So I know my two digits have to be 4 and a 5. But more importantly, I know that in order to get that -1, which is the number that is represented in the middle, I need to make sure the 5 is negative. So now I'm going to bring them down and I'm going to say plus 4 minus 5. Remember, you're not done yet, folks. All you've done so far is figure out, okay, this is the equation, this is the setup, because now I have to take each set of terms and say equal to 0. We're almost there, complete it. So minus 4 on the left to cancel itself out, minus 4 on the right. I have x equals -4, add 5 on both sides, and I have x equals 5. So the solution for this equation that they gave us up here is x equals -4 and x equals 5. So it's really important, folks, to remember that after you figure out what these two end terms are when it comes to the problem, that you don't just stop there. Because guess what? On the exam, those multiple choice questions, best believe that one of the answer choices will be 4 and -5. And if you get stuck into thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm done. I could see the answer. It's right there. It's letter A, it's letter B. Remind yourself like, no, hold up. You can't just assume those are the answers because you have to make sure both of these mini equations equal it to 0, and then you get your answer. So the answer isn't 4 and -5. The answer is -4 and +5. Sam, they might give you an actual quadratic equation like the one you see on the screen, and then they'll give you your answer choices because it's multiple choice, right? That's what they're going to do. And you're going to look at this equation, you're going to be like, I've got this. I did this last time. I figured out what the two solutions were for x. I made sure to not just stop, when I figured them out, but I went ahead and equaled it to 0 and I got to the answer. So when I see a problem like this, I got it down. I know that whatever two numbers need to multiply to equal this 30, and those same two digits when added will equal the -7. I've got this down. This is where I'm going to throw a curveball at you folks and tell you you don't have this. When we come down to this problem, and folks, this is for any problem where your coefficient that's hanging out with the x squared is larger than 1, you're not going to be able to do this problem by hand. There's a lot that goes into this type of equation. And because there is a 2 hanging out with my x squared, I'm going to grab my calculator to help me with this equation. It's going to let me figure out which one of these, the 5, 6, 7, or 8, is an actual solution for this problem up here. Remember, to find that, we would just need to substitute the 5, 6, or the 7, or the 8 wherever we see the x. So there's two ways that we can do this. So the first way is obviously just to type in the equation, and you could do 2 instead of saying x squared, we're going to do 5. But I know it's going to be raised to the power of 2, so I want to do open parentheses, 5 squared, close parentheses, minus 7, open parentheses, times 5, minus 30, and I get -15. So I know A is not an answer. Another way, instead of just inputting the number 5 as an x throughout the equation, what I could do is I could store 5 as x. What I would do is I would type 5, store as x, enter, and I get 5. So that lets me know that 5 is stored for x. So then I would do 2x raised to the power of 2 minus 7x minus 30. When I hit enter, I get -15. So those are two different ways that you could definitely take care of this problem. It's just making sure that you substitute the number or your answer choice for that letter. So the next one is 2, open parentheses, 6 squared, close parentheses, minus 7, open parentheses, 6, close parentheses, minus 30. Hit enter, and I get 0. And folks, that's going to be my answer. That's what I was looking for, is what value from my answer choice options is going to give me 0. And we figured that out, and it's B, which is 6. So you might also see a problem on the GED exam where they'll just tell you x equals a certain number. And then they'll say which one of the following answer choices would be the equation if x would equal -4. So you would have to go through and figure out, okay, well, is it A, B, C, or D? And we're obviously going to do this with the guess and check procedure. But for this one, I want you to make sure you use your calculator. And before you grab your calculator and start inputting each one of these answer choices, I want you to think about which ones can you eliminate just by using common sense and what you already know. So if they tell us that x equals -4 and I look at letter A, automatically I can say, you know what? I bet you if x equals -4, it can't be A because it has to end up equaling 0. And I know that 2 times x squared, which in this case would be -4 minus 8, is not going to give me 0. 2 times -4 squared. So -4 squared is -4 times -4, and that's going to give me 16. Okay, well, 16 times 2 is already at 32. And folks, if you're like, how is she doing this without her calculator? Please remember your multiplication table is essential. Eliminate A as an answer choice. Okay, so we got A out of the problem set. So now we're going to go on and we're going to figure out, okay, is it B, C, or D? But there's something else that I want you to notice. Do you remember when we had these simple equations where it was just an x squared minus x minus a number equals 0? And we figured out that for this example we went over that in order to get this -20, we had to multiply two numbers together, right, to get -20. So come back to the problem that we're working on now. If you were looking at your answer choices, which one of these, the 64, the 15, or the 24, are you thinking, okay, well, if I multiply these two digits to get 64, 15, or 24, would end up being the digit 4, right? So 4 times a certain number will equal 64. Well, what number times 4 equals 15? Don't worry, I'll wait. And if you're like, there's no number times 4 that will equal 15, that's correct. There's only certain numbers that you can multiply to get 15. 1 times 15, 3 times 5, and you're pretty much stuck there. There is no way we could do 4 times a number to get 15, so I'm going to cross C out. So now I'm just left with B and D. And folks, this is where you grab your calculator and you're going to input -4 to figure out, well, is my answer choice B or D? So let's grab our calculators and clear the screen if you haven't already, and let's start with B. So I have as x -4. So I'm going to do -4 in parentheses, and I'm going to square it, minus 8 times -4 in parentheses, plus 64. Hit enter, and I got 112. That's not the answer. So that means D is our answer. But if you're like, I want to double check D, just to be sure, maybe the GED folks got it wrong, well, let's input it into D. So I have 2 open parentheses, -4, close parentheses, raised to the power of 2, plus 2 open parentheses, -4, close parentheses, minus 24, and I hit enter, and I get 0, folks. We used our brains to get rid of A, and we used our brains to get rid of C. But then past that, if you're like, I need my calculator, grab the calculator. It is a tool you're able to use, so please make sure you do that. Thanks for watching, GED scholars. You know what you're doing. Keep your head up. You've got this.